was great.
By the way,
Nice.
we have some fun sound effects in here that I like to throw in sometimes. So if the opportunity calls for it, I'll give you a or a.
Okay, and I can. So this people can watch it or people can listen to it, right?
Both.
Yep, both.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So either one. So
My nose. Okay, I might make sure my nose is. Okay.
you look great,
All right. I'm ready.
Mr. Jacobs. You ready over here?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Cool. Let's get started.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to the next episode of the Dream Job Podcast. My name is Riley Warren.
And I'm Shannon Jacobs.
And we are very excited to welcome our next guest today, master educator, lifelong educator, and mentor to so many dozens of band directors out there, Miss Lynne Jackson. Welcome to the show, Lynne.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so excited to have you, and this has been a long time coming, and I'm just so thankful to know you, and we got to really know each other through my time at SMU in the master's program in your class, and just working in Region 3 and being in that area. And so, just love everything you've got to say, and so excited we get to share with our listeners today.
Thanks.
We've got some questions for you about your experience and your journey, and so we like to just start off by giving our guests a chance to just kind of talk about, what was your musical upbringing like? What sparked your interest in music, just kind of from the very beginning?
Well, I was born in Michigan, and my grandmother played the piano. My mother played the piano, and so I when band time came, I was living in St. Joseph, Michigan, and I wanted to be in the band, and I wanted to play the clarinet, and so I can vividly, honestly remember this, that they took me to this little basement place where we had a fitting, and I came out with a cornet, so that's how that happened. But somebody knew that that instrument should find me, because that was the right thing to do. So I started in St. Joseph. I had a teacher named Mr. Ernst, and I really didn't like him, and I didn't really like band, and I was there for 2 years, and but later on I liked him because he gave me an embouchure that was correct, and that I could play any note I wanted to play from the very beginning.
Wow.
And, I couldn't play them all then, but it assisted me later when I wanted to play all the notes I could.
Right.
And so then we moved to Buchanan, Michigan, where I was thinking about all of this. I had 4 people who really turned my life, and that's where I met Mr. Russell D. Reed. And I wanted to quit band because the first day I went to band, they were having marching band, and I had never marched before. Betsy White, who's one of my best friends right now, threatened to crash me with her cymbals, and it was in jest, but I got very upset about it, because I was so. It was hard. It's hard to move. You have to have a heart for kids who have to move.
It's a big life change.
Right,
it's not just band or school. That's
and that
like
was
everything.
me, and I cried every day, on the way home. But Mr. Reed called my mom and said, "No, I don't think Lynne should quit. She has a really good tone quality." So my mom said, "You're not quitting." And I like to tell that story to parents, who cave in so easily. Like, well, it's up to them. It should not be up to them.
Yeah.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, 100% agree. Right. We're the parents for the reason, right?
So I thank my mom, every day, because by 8th grade, this was in 7th grade when this happened, and by 8th grade, I was playing French solos, and Mr. Reed was my private teacher, and I wanted to be a band director.
Wow.
And I
Big
never
turnaround.
ever wavered.
Wow.
And he was just a magnificent teacher.
Wow.
And just it was really inspiring to be around him. And we had this wonderful community of students in my class. So many of us became music majors. So I grew up with these students who were equal to me in their passion for what we were doing. It was really great.
That's amazing. See,
Yeah.
you were. It's like that. What's the Robert Frost quote? 2 paths.
And I took the one less traveled.
That's right, and the one that was less comfortable at the time, but
Yeah.
look where it got you.
Yeah,
I think that's
it was.
amazing.
I loved high school.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Reed also helped me get into the University of Michigan because that's where he went. He was very good friends with Elizabeth Green.
Okay.
And so she later became my teacher at Michigan. But that's how I really got into Michigan because of Mr. Reed, I think.
Cool. So you wanted to stay homebound, and you loved the state of Michigan. And did you think about going anywhere else, or did you always
I
want
did
to go
audition
blue?
at Oberlin.
Okay.
But
cool.
it was really a very good thing I didn't go there, I think.
Yeah.
I loved Michigan. I loved the big school. I spent every summer with my roommates from freshman year for a few days or so. So it was a great place to go to school.
That's
and
awesome.
of course, I was in Revelli's band for 4 years.
Yes. We would love to
we
hear
can talk about that.
some stories.
Yes,
Oh
definitely.
yeah. Well, that could be a whole podcast. But the Michigan band was awesome. There were so many really cool people there. I'll just tell you one story. The first day, I was 17 years old, and I made the symphony band, which was incredible. And so, I didn't really know what that was. But I showed up, I sat down, and there was this older guy sitting next to me. And he said, well, what's your name? And I said, oh, I'm Lynne, Lynne Jackson. He said, I'm Bob Jager. Nice to meet you. So I was sitting next to Robert Jager when I was 17 years old. I had no idea who he was or what he had done, but he had won the Oswald Award that year for Third Suite.
Oh my gosh.
And then there were Brian Bowman was in that band, Frank Wicks, all sorts of, John Kisman was in that band.
Oh my gosh.
Mannheim Steamroller.
Oh yeah.
Chip Davis. He sat right in front of me playing the bassoon, yeah. So it was pretty fun.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but I didn't know that it was that fun at the time. I'm just sort of taking it all in, We had 120 in that band.
Oh my gosh.
I was in it for 4 years, so it was great.
That's amazing. What was it like to be under Revelli's baton?
Well, if you could get through some of the drama and just really pay attention to the musicianship that was going on around you, you could do very well.
Yeah.
Not everybody could do that, but finally I just said, listen, I'm not going to pay attention to any of that.
Sure.
I'm just going to be thinking about myself being on that podium one day and the sounds I want to hear, the phrases I want to make. And so I really enjoyed it. And there was drama with myself. My grandmother died my sophomore year, and I needed to go to the funeral. And we had a rehearsal that day, and he just told me that I shouldn't go to the funeral. I should come to the rehearsal. And I said,
things have changed.
Right, yeah.
I said, well, my dad's waiting at the bus station for me. And of course, we didn't have texting or, we had cell phones. I mean, there was no, and I just said, Dr. Revelli, I'm going to my grandmother's funeral. And that was that.
Yeah.
He just sort of always liked to push back just a little bit with you.
Sure.
But the music that we made was tremendous.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, that's incredible. We've interviewed a couple other Michigan university attendees. I think Dr. Zader was our first guest,
Okay.
Brian Zader.
Uh-huh.
I think he got his master's there. And so we got to hear a little bit about his experience there. So, and who was the conductor that was after Revelli? For
H. Bob Reynolds.
H. Bob Reynolds, right. And he's still there, is that correct?
No.
Or he recently retired?
The guy from Baylor went.
Isn't Jason Fettig going
Yeah,
in?
he's the new
Okay.
director, right?
Yes, that just happened. Cool. Mm-hmm. So,
And I'll think of the name of the guy from Baylor.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going.
sure
"Of course
someone's
you know who that
screaming
is."
at the podcast. It's da-da-da, it's da-da-da.
Yeah.
What about, were you part of the Big Blue Band? Did you, football games and things like that?
Oh, no. Well, there was all male marching band.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
I did not know
It was
that.
all male. I graduated in 70. I think in 72 it became co-ed.
Wow.
Now,
We're getting a history lesson today.
Yeah.
I love that.
yeah.
It's awesome.
So,
Yeah.
yes. So I did. Actually, I was relieved because I had more time to practice and more time to study.
Yeah. Yeah,
and-
fair.
Were you a
Yeah.
football fan? I mean,
I went to all the games.
Oh,
yes.
wow. So you're pretty happy as last year then?
Yeah.
When they won.
Oh, yes. Well, actually, my dad told me he made this promise: if your senior year, Michigan goes to the Rose Bowl, I'll pay your way. Well, we beat Ohio State in 1969,
Wow.
and we went to the Rose Bowl, and my dad paid my way. We
Nice.
had a blast.
That's amazing.
That's a
Yeah.
good story.
So beautiful out
Yeah.
there in Pasadena. Very cool. Well, what else about Michigan before we move? We're going to talk about, Vandercook and your experience there, but
Yeah.
before we move off of Michigan, that's such an impactful time for you.
Well, Elizabeth Green was very impactful. She was really a music educator. When you go to big universities sometimes, and I'm not putting these people down, but I had a lot of TAs teaching my classes.
Sure.
But when I went to Elizabeth Green's class, it was a class. We had strings with her, and I had conducting with her, and I had sight singing with her. And so that I really relished that. And then the music history guys, those were full professors. They were amazing.
That's great.
So, but most of my teachers were TAs, except Revelli wasn't, of course. And then I studied with Clifford Lillya. But it was a lot was going on in those years. The Students for Democratic Society was formed. We had protests all over the campus. And
just an interesting time in history to be in that college scene.
I had an afro and I wore sunglasses all the time. Yeah.
You neglected
I have
to
a
send
picture
us
of that.
picture. You should have sent us the picture. We throw it up on there.
It is. Yeah. It's very interesting. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I guess so. After Michigan, what was the next step for you?
Okay,
what happens then?
this is sort of so Russell D. Reed was my first guy. Well, the second guy, I got a job right out of college in Niles, Michigan. I taught there 1 year, and they eliminated the position because of money. And in the meantime, I had met a guy named Jeff Cole. He became my very dearest friend for 54 years. We're friends. He died this last February.
Wow.
And I met him, and he said, I want you to come and teach with me, but I have to get this other guy to leave to get you in. And so I knew I didn't have a job, and I said, okay, that sounds really great. Well, in the meantime, someone else offered me a job. And I said, I didn't know. I could have had that job right then, but I had to wait until a week before school to get in with Jeff. Wow. And I waited, and I got in with Jeff.
Oh, that's good.
So Jeff was getting his master's degree at Vandercook, and he said, why don't you sign up and start to get your master's degree? So every weekend we drove to Chicago, and we went to, it was like a high school classes. We had 8 hours a day. They rang bells, and we were there with the likes of Forrest Patel. Not everyone's going to know all these names, but H.E. Nutt, Daniel Tkach was our choir teacher. I was there with Vic Zajac. That's a very famous name at Midwest. Mm-hmm. And John Bergman. It was just, or Beckerman, sorry, John Beckerman. They were amazing faculty, and it was like they became our mentors. Because every week we would go down there, we learned, it was mostly pedagogy. It was very practical information. We had one sort of theory class, and everybody hated it. We wanted to learn how to teach the instruments, how to conduct, and we did. And those people were fantastic, and they became our mentors. So Jeff was a pretty young teacher at the same time, and we were just learning all this stuff. And we were in a rural community where the kids milk cows at 4:30 in the morning and milk cows at 4:30 in the afternoon. And so, but we worked like crazy all the time. And I was a head junior high band director. I was an assistant high school band director. I taught in 3 different communities every day, elementary school, and drove about 36 miles a day in rural southwestern Michigan.
Wow.
It was great. And I stayed there for, Jeff left after we spent 4 years together, but I stayed there for 5 years. And then I went to another school called Lakeshore, and that's in Stevensville, Michigan. But in the meantime, Jeff and I went to Midwest every year, and we heard Eddie Green's band at Midwest.
Wow.
And so I'm going to go on with the story just a little bit. So
please.
I'm ready to start my second year at Lakeshore, and my friend Pete Tolheisen had been Eddie Green's grad assistant when he was at Western Michigan. And Pete got a job at Lake Highlands High School in Richardson, Texas. Well, school had started, and very unfortunately, one of the man who was supposed to be the head director at Pearce High School died. And they were looking for an experienced teacher to come and work, be the assistant at North Junior High. And they called me over Labor Day weekend. I'd already started school. And they said, we're looking for somebody. And Pete Tolhuisen said, you're a really good teacher, you have experience, and would you like to come interview for this job? Well, we'll probably go into this later, but I mean, I was afraid to fly. I had hardly ever flown. And I went, okay. I said, yeah, I'd like to really interview, and I'll get back to you. I went into school the Tuesday after Labor Day, and I quit my job.
Oh, man.
And I drove to Texas.
Oh my gosh. So you just knew. You just felt like it was
It
right
just
move.
yeah. And Jeff, in the meantime, was in Florida. And I talked to my dad about it. I talked to Jeff about it, and I just went, I'm taking a leap of faith here.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here.
Oh,
That's
my
amazing.
gosh. That's awesome. That's cool.
Worked out. It seems like it worked out for you.
Yeah, it worked out really amazing for a lot of people, to be honest. A lot of people.
That's awesome. So that began the start of a long career in Richardson ISD at both Pearce High School and a couple middle schools that you taught at.
Right.
Correct?
I've been here 47 years.
Wow. Seen a lot change in the
Yes.
Metroplex
Yes.
in that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like working at you said North Junior High?
Yeah,
And then-
I worked for Billy Nero, and if anybody knows that name, I mean, she was tough to work with, but I survived, and at the end, and I learned a lot too, and I don't want to dismiss that with Billy, and then Marion West showed up, and Tom Bennett showed up, and David, just all kinds of people just started showing up in the Pearce cluster. And so they built a new junior high, and Tom Bennett asked me if I would open it. And that was Parkhill Junior High, and I opened Parkhill in '79 as a head director.
Wow. And how long did you teach there?
I taught there, I think it was 8 years. And then I was really wanting to get out of teaching. Mm-hmm. And this is one thing I do want to say on this, because I know that everybody thinks about it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
100%.
And so I started a counseling degree at North Texas State.
Right.
Or no, not sorry, East Texas State University.
What is now
in Commerce, right? Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so I started a counseling degree there, and I thought I was going to be a counselor. And then Matthew at that time was the head director at
McInturf.
yes,
Yeah.
at J.J. Pearson. He said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, "Lynn, you don't want to be a counselor. You want to be a high school band director." And I went, like I do, you know.
Yeah.
And I went to Pearce.
Wow.
And I spent 13 years there. That's my longest gig. Well, Berkner's sort of my longest gig right now. But
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm not a full-time teacher there. But that was my longest gig was at Pearce High School. And he was so right. Matthew, honestly, that just, again, that fork in the road
Yeah.
and that I came to. And so he said, come to the high school. And I loved it. I was also the flag corps director.
I read that about
Yes.
you. That's a
Yes.
learning curve.
From
for
the
sure.
time I took Parkhill, Tom said, you will be the flag corps director. So I was the only head junior high director that had to do marching band and be a head director. So that was sort of interesting,
Yeah.
Well,
but it
for-
worked out fine.
Sound like it prepared you for when you took the high school job. You kind
Yeah.
of already knew a little bit about what Texas marching band was like at that time, and what were some of the other highlights of teaching at Pearce
Oh my gosh.
before you?
Watching Matthew and Peter teach.
Yeah.
That-
Peter Warshaw, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Peter Warshaw. I mean,
Was Peter the orchestra director?
No, he was the second director, and I was the third.
Okay.
And watching them rehearse and just pull music out of kids, and watching how they prepared for rehearsals, and I mean, I got to play literature that I never dreamed I would ever play with a band as the third director. And then when Matthew left, he went to get his doctorate at Cincinnati, with Gene Corporon.
Oh, wow.
And then Peter became the head director. I became the second director. And then I got to play even more literature. We played in Carnegie Hall twice.
Wow.
And of course, we went to the Corpus things and Florida and all that stuff.
Right.
Oh my gosh. And I just the musicality and the level of musicianship. I mean, one year we had, I think it was 26 all-stars.
Oh my gosh. It's like
Now that's when
those
the
are like
process.
Hebrew numbers now.
Yeah, the process was a lot different then.
Yeah.
So it enabled us to have more, but we had so many all-state players, and even some. I think there were 3 or 4 in the second band.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a great time for Pearce.
I kind of want to go on a tangent there. Something we strongly believe in is that region process, trying to create better musicians that creates better bands. So how was you guys able to like motivate the students to get that stuff prepared and worked on, and to have 26 all-staters and a band? Like, what was some of the motivation tactics?
Well, I think we had great private lesson programs, and at that time, things have changed in Richardson, but the demographic was those kids, they were very well-to-do. They could afford to have private lessons. We had Claire Johnson teaching flute. We had David Burks teaching clarinet. We had Don Stewart teaching trombone. And we had just great private teachers. And so I wouldn't say that we were that embedded in that music. I mean, I don't even remember hearing playoffs or anything like that. The kids were just, now, the other thing, we had 9th graders in the junior highs.
Oh, wow.
And that really helped because the level of musicianship they were able to attain before they went to the high school was so much greater.
Yeah.
And so that, when you know you're pretty good at something and you really like it, it's just easier, I think. In 9th grade, most kids commit just a little bit more than they did if they're in 9th grade than they did in 8th grade. So I think that helped us a lot, having the 9th graders. But we, I just don't remember doing a lot with the all-region music.
Yeah, cool.
So
We might come back to it later, because I think that's been part of your time at Berkner, is working individually with students.
Inspired performers.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get back to that. You were at Pearce, you said, for 13 years, and then there was one more. Didn't you have one more stint as a middle school director again?
Yes,
in the same cluster?
I went back to North as a head director, and the best part about that was I knew what they needed to have to get to the high school.
Yeah.
And so I spent 3 years there, and then I retired. And when I say I retired, I meant I got my TRS money starting then. But I didn't retire. But I loved teaching at North those 3 years, and boy, those bands were really good, and they could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
I think the bulk of what we're going to talk about is kind of what happened after that and what's happened since. But Shannon has a question for something that I think happened in the 90s that I think is really interesting that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. I hear a rumor you won a National Endowment for the Humanities Award, and you got to travel to Vienna and Prague to study Mozart?
yes. So there was a woman named Melanie Shepard, and she was a sweet woman. And I think she taught in the language arts. And we were friends, and she said, "Lynn, you need to apply for this." And so I applied the first year. It's the National Endowment for the Humanities, and it was a month long in Vienna and Prague, and following Mozart's footsteps through those countries. And so I applied, and I was an alternate the first year. The second year, I applied again, and I was chosen. There were like 500 applicants, and 15 people got to do it. And it was a grant that paid for everything. And so I was able to go over there and study, and that's when I actually met a friend named Jane Schroeder, who was my roommate there, and we've traveled all over the world together since then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've been to Galapagos and Machu Picchu. And
So it sounds like you're not afraid of flying anymore.
No, I'm
I
not.
think you conquered that at some point along the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What were some of the highlights from that trip? Like,
Well,
what
I
sticks?
studied with a really wonderful professor, Richard Benedum, and he's from Ohio. And so we would have class every day, and then, well, not necessarily every day, but we always hung with him. And he would take us to the best places. A lot of people, we went off on our own sometimes, but I loved, we went to all the places that Mozart, where he lived, and where he, in Prague, where he played at the Estates Theater. He premiered Don Giovanni there.
Oh my
And we
gosh.
went out to Bertramka, which was the house that he lived in while he was writing the Don Giovanni. So that was my first time to Europe. I went by myself. I knew nobody. I flew across the ocean for the first time.
Wow.
And I got through the Frankfurt airport without getting arrested, and ended up in Vienna. And I found my hotel. I mean, I was very proud of myself because that was, it took a lot of courage for me. I was very nervous about the whole thing, but once I got over there, I never wanted to go home. It was so great.
And did you have to do any sort of like final write-up for the endowment, or was it just for all self-fulfillment, or like what was kind of like, was there like a final project associated with it at all?
No, we had to apply and
just go
that
and
was it. Yeah.
Experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And not that, obviously you gained, something that you could bring back to your students with that experience.
Right.
That world experience.
Well, I think that transferred later on when I did all of those youth orchestras and youth band. Texas Ambassadors, I did that 3 times.
That's perfect. That's my next question. My next question was, what was that like? And that you were conductor of the Texas Youth Orchestra and got to travel a lot.
Yeah, one of
that.
the conductors. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I mean, to be able to take my students, who could go and have the experience of traveling abroad and seeing all this. In fact, one asked me if I wanted to go to lunch at the Hudson House like this week. I mean, it changes their life. It changed my life.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a wonderful experience. I took my oldest niece I never took to Europe, but I took all my other nieces on those trips, and then one of my nephews. And they now travel. My niece Kelsey's in Norway right now. I mean, they travel all over the world, and they're worldly girls and boys, and I love that. And then the students, I just think they profited so much from it, musically and just emotionally, and they learned to appreciate other cultures, and they grew a lot. The ones that we took on the first day were not the ones we brought home.
Right.
It was. Don't take that literally.
There's some mismanagement going on here.
We left all those kids in
We
Europe.
left
Better kids. Some European kids. They're really cultured. That's great.
That's funny.
Okay.
What's the, tell us, because maybe we have someone listening, that's maybe eligible to apply for that or has students that could apply for that. What's the age criteria? What's like how do you apply and be a part of that?
Right. Yeah. Right now, there's lots of those different things, and most students should be aware of them in the schools if their director's doing that kind of thing and promoting that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's the Texas Ambassadors is now something different, and I think they just went this last summer. And then there's youth orchestras. I mean, and I'm not really familiar with all of them.
Sure.
But there's more than one opportunity though to do that. The Texas Ambassadors was sort of the first thing that came to this state, and about now, but there's others. I know that Frank Troika, my friend, is involved with one that
Cool.
Scott McCormick runs.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So we can definitely maybe put some information out about that
Sure.
and
Yeah.
try to get
It's a
more
great
people involved in
experience.
that. I've kind of seen some friends do that from afar, traveling and kind of coaching and stuff like that. So it seems like it's a really good experience. Cool that you got to be a part of that.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
That's awesome. So we get to 2003, and you retire. And then since then, you've had some really interesting roles in Richardson ISD and the Berkner cluster and all those things, and also as well as SMU. So how did that all begin?
It's crazy. I just thought I was going to knit or something. No, anybody that knows me knows I'm not going to do that. But no, as soon as I retired, there was a halftime opening in Plano at Robinson Middle School. It was teaching 3 beginner classes in the morning. You're done at 11:30, and I went, "That's perfect. I want to do it." And that's when I met Kim Hernandez, and so I became an assistant, a halftime assistant. I was, collecting my retirement, doing that, and went to Robinson. I stayed there, I think 6 years, and then then the school board summarily fired all halftime teachers at one school board meeting, and it was done. I think I would still be there if I could, because I loved that job so much. I loved working with Kim. And then a few years in, here comes we hire a first-year teacher named Ross Patterson. Well, also, I'll back up just a little bit. I was also offered a job teaching one class at SMU. So Alan Wagner calls me and goes, "Would you like to teach a class at SMU?" And I went, "Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait. What is it?" Double reeds. So
Wait, where's the...
I said yes. And that's one thing I learned, is that I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't have a lot of knowledge, I immediately signed up for bassoon lessons with Herman Vogelstein, and I studied with him for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Every Sunday I went over and had a lesson. And I love teaching double reeds. And in that class were some really, Rob Chilton was in that class,
Oh
Chris
my gosh.
Pineda. It was a really
Great
fun class.
middle school directors.
Yeah. And so anyway, Ross Patterson comes to as a first-year teacher, and I have 3 classes, one of which is a trumpet class, and that's during his planning period. And so he said, "Well, I'm just going to be in your class and watch what you do," which a first-year teacher, that's pretty mature, I think.
Right, yeah.
You know, hey, I need a coffee, you know. So every class he was in there, and so that's when mentoring became. That's my first step into mentoring a young teacher, and that changed everything for me. I loved teaching Ross, and Ross is a very, very fine band director.
Yeah.
His band was just a finalist in the honor band process in San Antonio. And I just loved mentoring him. So then I had my SMU students. So those things sort of went, arm in arm. And that's when the mentoring became a big thing for me, which is pretty much the path that I've been on since then.
Yeah. So, and that was a class that you taught for undergrads, double reed, or was it?
Yes, undergraduate. And
Okay.
it turned into. Then I ended up doing. They had a high woodwind class, a flute, saxophone, and clarinet, and then double reed class. We had a low brass class and a high brass class, and I ended up teaching all 4 of those classes at SMU.
Pedagogy. Basically, you would teach the students who were from all different instrumental backgrounds.
And choir, and orchestra.
Okay. You
Music
taught the
ed.
choir.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were saying you taught choir and orchestra at SMU. I was like, dang, Lynn, you're full time. You're tenure track over there at SMU.
Those operas would have been very interesting, yeah.
That's funny.
But no, you were teaching undergraduates from all those backgrounds, and so
Yeah.
multiple classes. And that must have been a really fulfilling thing for you to do.
I loved
after
it.
so many years of teaching beginners
Oh my
at
gosh.
middle school level.
Those who went on to teach were just amazing. Robin, and then Ross and Adrian Schuster came and were my full-time grad students, and they took all they took all those classes too, and so it was very exciting. And Rob Chilton was in there, Chris Pineda. I'm trying to. I will probably leave somebody out somewhere. Oh, Christopher Bronson. I mean, it just and they're teaching now. Ryan Reyna. They're teaching now, and they're just really great teachers. But SMU allowed us to have 4 of those classes, which most universities have a brass class and a woodwind class.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty great. And we had enough bassoons that everybody played bassoon. Everybody played oboe. It's never like we had one bassoon.
Right.
Everybody had the instruments that they needed to, and we made sure.
Yeah.
I was very proud of that. I did that for a lot of years.
At what point did it go from you teaching undergrads to kind of what you've been doing the last several years and maybe more, where I got to really learn the most from you in the grad class?
Yeah, then Brian Merrill showed up at SMU, and we were sort of a team. We were a team, and they asked us if we would do a graduate class. And so Brian and I did it for several years. And at that point, though, my schedule, I had started working at Berkner also, and my schedule was it was so heavy, something had to give. So Paul Schmidt is now teaching the undergraduate classes.
Gotcha.
And then he also, Brian left after a few years, and and so Paul Schmidt and I teach the graduate class now. But when I taught your class, it was just me for that 1 year.
It was. Yeah. And I've heard so many great things about Paul Schmidt through Lauren Jones, and so when I got to come back and present to you guys, it was cool to meet him and see the great things y'all are doing there.
Yeah. we actually spent the whole day together last day of TBA and
Aw.
just dreaming about the stuff that we're going to do. So
That's
it's
incredible.
Fun. Yeah.
Well, so many people are so fortunate to get to have that experience with you. So I certainly am very thankful for the year that I got to spend in your class. And
That was a great class.
And it really worked out because COVID had kind of really finally ended. So, and there were parts of my SMU degree that were during COVID. So I'm very thankful to Dr. Scott and Dr. Allen for everything they did to get us through that. But that was kind of the last little part of my degree. And that was, there's so many things I learned from that. So, and I know that I'm just one of hundreds of people who've got to go through that with you. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't even remember the first. I'm trying to think of the first group. I think that Tiffany Lisco and Tish Downs were in that group. There were that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
They're really old now.
Tish Tish will still post about it every once in a while on Facebook.
Yeah,
so impactful.
Yeah, the graduate class and this past year's was just fabulous. I mean, it's such because students come to the graduate class going, wait, I didn't learn this, or I don't know this. What can we learn?
Yeah.
Or what can you teach me that I need to know? And I mean, it's limitless. All the number of things that we can do in those 3 hours every Wednesday night for 2 semesters.
Yeah.
And we get a lot done.
Well, I made a push on one of the previous episodes that at this point hasn't been released yet, but will be released by the time we release this episode, is we interviewed me, and that was one thing I made sure to talk about was my experience in that SMU master's program.
Right.
So I'll talk about it again for anyone listening.
Right.
It's part-time. You can do it as a full-time teacher. It's usually once a week, maybe 2 classes a week in some of the heavier schedules. It's 30 hours. It's heavily discounted for educators, so it's not like paying for a full-time master's degree, and you get to learn with great teachers like Lynn and Dr. Sarah Allen and
Julie Scott,
and Paul Schmidt and Jack Delaney. And I don't know if Rob Frank is still there. He
is.
He was our theory teacher. Amazing. So that was a really recharge moment for me. I was a second, third year teacher, and I was like, you know what? I think I could take something on at this point. And man, I just don't regret it at all. It was so great.
Wednesday night sort of felt like a safety net, that it was they're very accepting. There was no judgment.
Yeah.
No judgment in this room. And people could bring in, things that they were thinking about, or ideas that they had, issues, that they might have had, or things that concerned them. And it was just, it's just a great safety net for young teachers.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah,
no
I
matter
really
how
love
good or
it.
bad your week was going. So, well, that covers a lot of the SMU stuff, but kind of concurrently, the role that I met you in was this sort of assistant role that you had in the Berkner cluster. That I think most people who have met you in the last 5 to 10 years, this is where they know you the most from. So talk a little bit about what that was like and I know it's maybe not exact, I think you've kind of scaled back in the last year or so. But
it just changes every year. It's sort of fluid.
We need you here. We need you here.
It is very fluid, yes.
So what has that been like over the last 15
it's wonderful.
years or so?
So after Plano released all the halftime teachers, I didn't have a job, but I didn't really, I wasn't really looking for one. But Frank Troika called me. And at that time, Brad Kent, I think everybody knows who that is. Brad Kent was our music supervisor at RSD, fine arts coordinator. And Frank proposed this thing: can I take a position and cut it in half and have 2 halftime people? And can I have one of them be Lynne Jackson? Because I don't want her to have to come to faculty meetings. I don't want her to have to do grades. I don't want her to do anything other than visit our classrooms and align our curriculum.
Yeah.
And he said yes.
Wow.
So it was a great job. I mean, and it was a halftime, but I worked 3 days a week though, because I spent 1 day at Liberty Junior High, 1 day at Apollo Junior High, and 1 day at Berkner. And it was, we had Andrew Week at Apollo, Chris Pineda at Liberty, at that time Frank Troika at Berkner, and I just fell in love with the kids and the staff, and I still am in love with them, even though some things have changed a little bit. But it's just, I don't know. It is really good. Now, Frank stayed there for a while. Then he retired. Then Jason Shio came in. I love working with him equally as well. So basically, our beginners are not homogeneous. They are heterogeneous, and they are in 10 different elementary schools every day.
Oh my gosh!
I know we complain about going to 5 schools.
And so the beauty of it is all the high school directors, aside from the head director, teach at least usually 2 beginner classes a day.
Yeah.
So they have to know the pedagogy, and that strengthens our staff. So I, like, on one day I'll go to. Right now, the way that it works is, back then I was a salaried person, but now I'm not. I'm sort of working, on just getting paid for the classes that I
under the table.
miss it. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and but I would spend the whole day with Chris, and he'd say, "Okay, go to this elementary with Emmy," and then they'd come back, and and I would spend the whole day, and we would from morning till school was over, and it was just great. And I really got an insight as to what was happening, what the needs were. It was very collaborative, and it's very exciting. And Berkner, we did really great. I mean, it was we got to go to Midwest, and actually we've been to Midwest twice since I've been there. Once with Frank, once with Jason Shio. Our concerts were fabulous, and then the other teachers that we had, including our percussion teachers.
Yep.
Were amazing. They were amazing, and it's just been a lot of fun. So I'm still definitely Team Berkner. There's no question about that.
Well, that's awesome, and I don't, not every district has something like that, but I hope people will listen to this and think, oh, well, how can I get something like that where I can have someone like a Lynne Jackson come out and help, even if it's 1 day a week or a couple days a week, just to kind of see everything from that bird's eye view, like you were able to.
Frank asked for what he wanted. I mean, are you going to really hire a teacher that doesn't have to go to faculty meetings, doesn't have to do grades,
Yeah.
But Brad Kent said yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just got to be kind of headstrong sometimes, and you know what's best for your program.
Yes, I think that the flexibility and the principals, I mean, they were all about. I had great principals there at Berkner, and I mean, they were all about it because I mean, I showed up and I did what I was supposed to do. But you have to ask for what you want. If you have an idea and say, "Oh, they'll never go for that," you don't know until you ask.
Yeah, right.
I think it's harder these days than it was back then when. It is.
For sure.
Yeah, we need to do what's best for the kids.
All the time. Well, great. I'm sure we could go on about your time at Berkner, but we've got a lot of other things we want to talk to you about, so maybe we'll come back to some of that stuff. But, you've been around Berkner and Pearce and all these great band programs. What is your vision for a successful, enriching program for students? What are some specific steps that you've taken towards achieving this in the programs that you've taught in? And maybe what are some obstacles and pitfalls along the way?
Well, I've thought about this a lot. I'm reading this book, Atomic Habits,
That's a great book.
Yeah,
Great book.
yeah, and it's what we did. The first 3 chapters, at least, that's where I am. But you invest in the process, in the system, and you don't worry about the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, if your goal is to be honor band and that's all you worry about, you'll never be honor band. You've got to invest, and you got to show up. That's the other thing. I think that that's really important. I mean, and I don't mean just be there. I mean show up and be the teacher that you can be. And if you don't, if you're lacking in some areas, you do something to fill that void. To make yourself a better teacher. You've got to show up. And you've got to be part of the learning community. Like I want to put in a plug. TBA was awesome. I know that it was a little bit later this year, so I'm assuming that's why many people didn't go. But it is the kickstart that we need before we go to before we start the year. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
The clinics I went to a lot of clinics, and they were really, really great. So, and showing up at TMEA and being part of the learning community in that, and going to Midwest, if you can. I know that it does add up financially to go to all 3 of those. I know that, but it's just those are tremendous boosts for us. And then also I think you're gonna ask me about being a good assistant, but you have to be a team player.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the team, then go somewhere else. But you have to make that commitment, because if you're not a team player with the team, then you're not a team player with the kids.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that.
And you have to invest in the process, the day in, day out, showing up, teaching your butts off, being present for the kids and their staff, and also, asking for what you want. My other saying is, when the door opens, you rush in. You don't wait to rush in. You're energized and you're there for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then also, I got to teach one semester Introduction to Music Ed at SMU. Jessica Moss was in that class, I remember, and Noelle Fabian, who's Don Fabian's daughter, was in that class. It was a big class, and I asked them, what is the most important thing that a teacher has? And they said, compassion, empathy. And I went, no, understanding, no. What is it? I said, knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge,
Yeah.
you need those other things. I'm not dismissing them.
Sure.
But you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why the percussion guys, I will say, if you don't know what you're doing, it becomes very visible really fast, doesn't it?
Really quick.
Yeah.
Real
Visible and audible.
And audible.
Maybe more importantly, audibly, for sure.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's great. Well, that's fantastic. I guess that kind of leads us to the next one you kind of alluded to, right? What is your vision for an ideal assistant director and / a ideal head director? Like, how are they different? What pitfalls, what kind of traps could either of those roles fall into? And what should they bring to that team?
Well, I like head directors who are great musicians.
Yeah.
That's what I have been honestly really fortunate with Matthew and Peter and Frank and Jason. And if you're a really good musician, you're inspiring to your staff. We did this thing at Berkner, and I loved it. Every Monday morning at 7 a.m., we got together in the conference room. Everybody had to be there on the high school staff, and we went down this menu of this week, the next week, looking ahead, who's going to do what. That was the communication was so strong from the head director. And, I think a lot of head directors get in trouble with their staff because they don't communicate.
Yeah.
And so, Frank did it. Jason still does it. It looks exactly the same, the
Jason,
format.
Just this last week, presented at our Fine Arts Summit for Forney ISD and presented all of that. And then I think he used us a little bit as the guinea pigs because he did the same thing at TBA. So it's great that he shared.
He did. I was at that one, yes. But it's true. And so we sat down every Monday morning, and everybody's on board. Now, what happens, though, if you're an assistant that's not on board? Well, number one, don't go talking bad about the staff or your head director outside of your home, your school.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, then go find another job. And people do that. That does happen. But I think being a great musician, being a great communicator, knowing when you screw up and owning it.
Yeah.
This is for everybody, but a head director definitely. Not, and again, enjoying the process, the system, and not just always having the goal to win, because that happens. I see it, And, And I think you lose when that's what you want to do. And just being in touch with the assistants and what's going on. The head director at Berkner has his own office, and then there's the assistant's office with six desks.
Yeah, the
And
bullpen.
so I see Jason come in, and he will just sit in the office like for hours with the assistants. It's not like he's down here and this. Just that kind of collaborative relationship is really important. Now, as far as a good assistant, I mean, first of all, you need to be, and also a good head director, he should have the ear of his first assistant. They should talk about things that maybe other people, is not privy to other people.
Like a first mate.
Right. And I think that's really important. I learned that from Matthew, and I learned that from Frank also. And so that's important. But an assistant is, a good assistant. Oh, I'll tell you a story.
Let's hear it.
Stephen Van Hooser, he's down in the Houston area now. But one time, we were going to have, I think, a faculty meeting in the band hall, and they were supposed to set the chairs up before they went home that night. And Jason gets home, and he goes, "Dang, I forgot to set up those chairs." And he comes early in the morning, like at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30, and he walks in the band hall. All the chairs are set up. Stephen Van Hooser thought to do that before he went home the night before. That's a good assistant.
Yeah, be one step ahead.
Right, exactly. And that's a good student, too. A good student, Ben Underbrink, who you teach with. So I was
just about to bring him up.
Really?
Yeah.
He said that if you're a good student, you almost know where the teacher is headed before you go there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And, that's because not everybody knows, but that's the way a good assistant is. Yeah. What can I do? A good assistant does not duck out without saying, "Is there anything else that you'd like me to do before I go home?"
Yeah.
"I'd like to go home, but is there anything else you would like me to do?" "No, head out," or "Yes, can you do this one thing?" And okay, that's the way that, and we school each other in that. We don't. It's not just again. I tell when I teach beginners, I say, teach them everything. Teach them everything. And you have to do that as a staff, too. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We don't duck out. We don't go away and where's Mr. So-and-so? Well, I have no idea where he is. No, we're communicative and we're collaborative and we're connected.
It's awesome. It's great to hear that from someone who you were in both roles. You were a head middle school director for so long, and then you also served as an assistant, but then even, when you retired, you were able to take all of those things and combine them and help out in the way that you were able to.
And the last thing, the roles are clearly defined, and I think that's important too.
Yeah.
That there's not a gray area with your role. This is what you do, and that's a safe place for an assistant.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely examples, not necessarily always toxic, but the expectation is X, Y, Z, and I didn't do that, and now my head director's upset with me or whatever. It's like, no, just define what you expect of them, and then they'll rise to the occasion.
And it goes the other way too. If the head director doesn't define the roles, and the assistant is waffling around, that's not a comfortable place for an assistant to be, especially first-year teachers. First-year teachers, I've been doing in Frisco. Worked with 3 first-year teachers now for 2 years, and they really need all the things that I'm talking about, to feel safe.
I kind of want to go back to maybe some of the Atomic Habit things. I just have one piggyback on that.
I remember I've only read 3 chapters.
It's okay, but even then, so
those are great. That's you've gotten more than most people. If you've read those 3 chapters.
To be honest, no, it's something I take my students. I have for the past 2 or at least 2, maybe 3 years, is going through that book a little bit. There's a podcaster that I like who interviewed James Clear, and it kind of goes through it in like an hour. We do it over a couple of days. Oh. But one of the things that I tell my battery kids is about enjoying the process versus the result. If you look at a contest week, you have Monday rehearsal, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night football game, Saturday contest.
Right.
If that's what you look forward to, there's one opportunity to win in that week. But if you look at, can I win this rehearsal on Monday? Can I do my absolute best on Monday? Now you've opened yourself to 6 opportunities for enjoyment and fulfillment. And we focus on that. And then at that point, Saturday just takes care of itself.
Right.
Because you've been down into the process of doing the right things, following protocols, and then we always rate our rehearsals. Like, did we rise to our standard today? Was it a 10? Was it a 9? Was it a pretty rough day? It was like a 6. And we do that throughout the week. And then, we get to contest season, we're like banging out 10 rehearsal. Yeah, we feel really good about that. And on Saturday, it feels like a breeze.
It's normal, right?
It's normal.
It's like all the dominoes fell before it. Now we're to the performance, and there it goes.
It just goes, yeah.
Right.
Love that. Yeah, it's such a good thing for, like I said, I try to preach that to my students, and I think just the more people hear that, it just opens us up to a lot more opportunities for enjoyment, fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every day is an opportunity to win the rehearsal. Love that. Well, and we talk a lot about, what does Cody say when we go to a performance? Like, give it all you got, but not more than you have.
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
You know, just don't do anything different.
Yeah.
We love our kids, and
that's good for all region too.
Yeah, this is not the time.
Don't be a hero here.
You see this person from this other school went 10 clicks faster than you, and now you're going to try to do that, something you've never done before.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you crash and burn. Or same thing on the marching field. You see the lights and you see the crowd, and we didn't have this crowd in rehearsal, and now I want to.
Now I want to play this note that I've never played before.
Yeah. Go this tempo.
Let me try that.
Let me try that high G that note that I have from practice all week.
Yeah, very consistent. So I think that's really great. So we talked. We're getting into something I think you're really known for. So what are some fundamental rehearsing techniques you use, like very specifically in the classroom? What does it look like when you're teaching students? And what does that look like at different levels? Like, what does it look like for when you're teaching beginners versus second, third year players, high schoolers? Maybe you're conducting a region band. I have a follow-up question to that, but I kind of want to hear you answer that one first.
Well, okay, with beginners, I stack my Pringles. So the bottom.
I have to zoom in on the wink.
The bottom Pringle is, let's say, it's the first thing you teach them. Maybe it's just walking in the room. How they come into the room. And then the next one might be opening the case. And the next one might be putting the instrument together, and so on. And so every day I try to visit every one of those Pringles so that the very first one remains in place.
Yeah.
It's what I believe about beginners. You have to teach them everything. Teach them everything. Even the things that you would suspect they might do on their own. No. Just make sure that you teach them everything. And also with beginners, some people get they get so ambitious about all the things they want to teach the beginners. I say there's 5 things, maybe, I don't really know how many there are, but 5 things I want my beginners to be able to do by the end of the year. And one is to have a correct embouchure and make a characteristic sound. Yeah. And the other one is to be literate, to know how to read music, to understand, have a deep-seated understanding of the staff.
Yeah.
If my students can do that, I can take them anywhere.
Yeah.
In the second year. Some people they've got to be on a certain page of a book, or they've got to be a certain song. Sometimes our concerts and really mess us up because it makes us hurry our teaching, and then we have learning gaps, we miss steps. Mm-hmm. So to me, beginning year is the most important year of a band student's career, and I want a 7-year career. That's what we're all looking for, 6th and 12th grade, and but I don't want everything I teach them. I want it to be like perfect.
Right.
And so that's all I care about. And so in our heterogeneous classes, well, Andrew Week had a class last year at Big Springs Elementary, and he had every instrument in that class except for double reeds. He had percussion. He had 3 percussionists. Mike Matthews' daughter was one of them, and he had trombones, French horns, trumpets. He had all the brass, and all the woodwinds except for the double reeds, all by himself. So if he taught them 5 things, I think he's a genius. If they can make characteristic sound and they can read music within the range that they can play, I'm happy with that. Right. Moving on, but the problem is that you can't skip steps. You can't do that in the interest of more content.
Right.
That's a bad mistake.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the other thing that does frustrate me is that I can look at a kid and I can tell that they have a bad embouchure. And I think that teachers really owe it. They owe it to their students and to themselves to be able to look at an embouchure, just like I'm sure you can look at hands and sticks and know right away that it's not correct.
Well, we can see bad embouchures too.
Yeah.
I'm like, sticks are looking good. Let's fix some of these embouchures out here.
I've been, this is a side tangent, but I've been referring to hand position as an embouchure lately.
Oh, that's good.
Wow. So prolific.
I stole it from Jeff. But
Yeah. Everything that's great.
so Jeff did
That's
it
awesome.
first.
I love that.
Now, for like second-year players and a more advanced ensemble, and articulation is very important too. Don't skip that in 6th grade. You need to really work on that in their first year. That's really important. And correct, but I believe that correct embouchures elicit correct articulation. I think a poor articulation is a reflection of a poor embouchure. I think those things they're related. It's all about balance. Everything in music is about balance. Yeah. And in life, when your life's out of balance, it's hard.
It's tough.
And sometimes you can't help it. It isn't something you did, But I'm interested in once a student learns the correct face, and especially in brass, then I'm interested in breathing and blowing. Breathing, blowing, and vibrating the instrument. All right, sustaining. Those things interest me after that. And then, of course, you can add the articulation to that and make different rhythms. And then, if their embouchure is correct, they're going to be able to have range. So you have to know how to develop the range of the instruments. The brass we have to develop not only those things, but we have to develop our reed. We have to develop our muscles. And the other thing that teachers need to understand is that when a beginning brass player starts, those muscles are not developed.
Yeah.
Don't expect them to have the developed muscles. You have to be there in that process every day, developing the muscles that they need, just like you guys do.
Yep.
And now, the clarinet has a reed, so that does save a little bit of the process, because if they can get their muscles right around the reed and blow, the reed will vibrate. But we are the reed and the embouchure and the reed all in one for the brass.
Yeah.
And so people always want me to teach about brass and flute also, because flute doesn't have a reed either.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think those are the two most challenging ones. But so basically, I want to expand range, I want to expand literacy, and then musicianship. I teach musicianship in 6th grade using songs that are just like, this do 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 do. All right. So I will play it for them on my trumpet, and the first 3 notes are the same pitch, all quarter notes. Do do do. So I grow. Repeated notes intensify. I tell this. Repeated notes intensify. All right. And then I'll say I'm going to float the high note a little bit, and then I'm going to go down to the low note. Now this is like second semester, okay? We're not doing that.
Yeah,
but I just show them how they can play Au clair de la lune, and they can be musical. And so being a musician teacher in front of my kids is very important. I don't use baby talk or anything like that. I treat them like, I would treat my high school students in a sense, but be very respectful to them. I'm in business mode with them most of the time.
Yeah.
Except the French horn class. You can go crazy with them, and then they'll get right back to work. Double reeds also.
Ben will like that.
Yeah, but not trumpets.
Yeah.
No, don't smile like the whole first semester.
Yeah.
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 No, that's not true, but that's sort of true. But so I'm just interested in the developmental process of developing a musician. I do want to talk about inspired performers, though.
Yeah,
before
please.
Can I talk about that now?
Talk a little bit about working with, maybe what's it look like at a high school level, and then concert band, and maybe we can tie that into working with your high school level students?
Like a concert. You mean the top band or the non-varsity bands?
Both would be great. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
What's the what do you think is a difference between approaching either of those?
It's just,
or similarities?
You have to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
So it just depends. If you go to a new school and the kids in the concert band can't read music, then you got to teach them how to read music.
Yeah.
You got to find out where they are. If I think back to the Pearce days, I mean, the second band played the Bernstein.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, Jeremiah Symphony. Right. I mean, the second band.
I
played
got
that.
lucky. I
Yeah.
don't want to pretend like I know every wind piece ever.
I mean, Peter did that with the second.
Do another
band.
one. No,
Yeah,
just kidding.
because with the second band because they could
Yeah.
play it. So I think the responsibility for the teacher is huge in a non-varsity band because you have to really foster growth, and that's your job. Is that you want those kids? I want my kids I did the third band at Pearce. I want my kids to be in the second or the first band the next year.
Right.
And so I consider that to be a very big responsibility. Sectionals were where I just did the meat of my teaching. That's where you just really get into the things that are needed for that particular instrument, the development of that particular instrument, and then of course learning their parts. But then in band, during band class, I played a lot. Horn on face, play a lot, and let them play. And then I would always have a notepad next to me, and I would write down things that I wanted to address in sectionals or in future full band rehearsals. And but there's always too much talking that I see in many classes.
Oh yeah.
Just they can fix things themselves. You don't have to tell them everything. They can know that they did that and fix it themselves. So I love teaching high school because the kids were so self-sufficient. That's one thing. When I went to Pearce, I just loved it that we would sit up in our offices and then everybody would be on the bus. Everything was all already on the, not always, this was not always, but everything was already on the truck. The kids were on the bus. The parents were taking roll, and we just walked down and we drove in our car to the football game. But it was, I just loved how self-sufficient they were. And we taught them to do that.
Yeah.
And I also love the leadership opportunities, the leadership in the Berkner Band. We have, it's 18% of the students are student leaders.
Wow.
I think that's what
I
you
think we
heard
do
in
the
the
same
clinic
thing here.
that Jason had. 18%
Yeah.
or 20% are student leaders.
Yep.
Right, not just a few. And that you foster and create that leadership process within the group. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's more things that can be a leader other than just section leader. I mean, we have leadership positions that are attendants,
Right.
loading crew, and all of those people get to be in the same leadership team. It's not like one is more important than the other and these are excluded. It's like we try to give, if a kid wants to help, they have an opportunity to come and be a part of the team.
Yeah.
Kind of follow up a little bit, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, but one thing you stressed a lot about when you were talking in the grad class at SMU was like, you have some things about teaching beginners that are like you won't give up, right? It's your way of doing them. And so for you, what are some like beginner pedagogy like non-negotiables? Like it has to be this way, or and I'm gonna spoil one. I know you like have to have a whiteboard.
I cannot teach without a whiteboard.
And
that's all I need.
I think that's awesome.
And
a pen, right?
And a pen.
Yeah.
But no, that's all I need is a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And that's all we have at the elementary schools. I mean, when we go into those 10 elementary schools, we have to create our own classroom.
Yeah.
There's no classroom set up for you. You have to put your chairs up, drag the whiteboard out, in every single one. And but yeah, the whiteboard. And so Mr. Bradford, our fine arts coordinator, made sure that everybody had a whiteboard. Every single, if there were 3 classes going on at once, there were 3 whiteboards available for those teachers, and that has really helped a lot. But for me, there's not a beginner sound.
Mm-hmm.
I want this. It may not be, exactly sound like, Ryan Anthony playing the trumpet. Okay. But there's not a beginner sound.
Yeah.
I want a characteristic sound from the beginning. And you can think of any, you can do that on flute.
Yep.
It may not have vibrato. I mean, you can do that on clarinet. You can do that, and you can do that on brass. And so that's important. And the way that students look and the way they sound is very important to me. And then they have to be able to breathe and blow and vibrate their instrument and sustain. I think that sustaining is very, very important. And then we have articulation. And meanwhile, we're learning how to read music. And that's how we craft the class. And we make sure that we don't have learning gaps.
Yeah.
And so I call it fishing. We fish for understanding and make sure that students really understand everything that we're doing. And the staff, we take a long time to teach the staff. A long time. We just start with 5 lines.
Yeah.
And then we number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 spaces, we number them. And we just identify positions. Point, this is space 4. And we just do that for a long time. And we make sure that everybody understands it.
Yeah.
Then, the next thing we do?
Chromatic scale.
Nope.
Musical alphabet. I'm going to go musical alphabet.
That's hilarious. We erase the numbers
Oh, yeah.
and see if they still understand.
First base.
See, it's like, whenever I ask that question, most everybody doesn't know.
Yeah.
But think about it. That's how detailed we get with what we do. You guys are detailed people.
Yeah.
You're going to ask me what I respect about percussionists later on. And I mean, you guys, you pay attention to the details. We assume too many things when we teach beginners, and that can get us in trouble with learning gaps or with a lack of what I want to say. I want to say successive understanding that one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Yeah, I get this. I remember crying in 8th grade math because math scared me. I love math, actually. I almost became a math teacher. But in 8th grade, Mr. Renhack, my teacher, he taught us, he was up there telling us something, and I didn't get it. And that was the first thing I didn't get. I had gotten everything else from the time I started math, and I didn't get that, and I started crying. I cried a lot. And he says, "What's wrong, Lynn?" I said, I think I stopped understanding math just then." Well, I didn't.
Right.
But it scared. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I did not have a gap in what
You don't
I
want
was
to skip
learning.
a step.
Right. So
I have a similar story. 8th grade math teacher, Mr. Hike. Like, I was in advanced classes, honors classes my whole life. Then I got in that class. He wouldn't stop and like visually thinks I'm real visual. So he wouldn't, and I was just like, I came home to my mom crying like, I don't understand. I suck and I feel stupid and I felt bad and I got out of the class and.
see, I know. Well, yeah, I know that's. So think about that with your beginners. You know,
Yeah.
the moment that they're not going to tell you.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I was in 8th grade. I told Mr. Rennick. I mean, it scared me to death because I ended up taking math all the way through trigonometry, calculus, and all of that. And I loved it so much. But
I did not. Still don't.
yeah. but that was a very upsetting moment for me. So you've got to keep fishing for understanding, and asking questions, and questions that that require critical thinking. Critical thinking for me was the carrot in front of me that really made me want to be a musician and major in music, because I loved how that you could change things just by thinking about them, like a phrase or the way you move between notes and all of that. Just and I love critical thinking, and I think for our really bright students, that's why they stay in band.
Yeah.
If it's just same old every day, it's not interesting anymore. Kids will say, "I'm bored."
Yeah.
Right.
We need to listen to that to an extent, but we need to listen to it.
One of the hardest things about teaching beginners in particular is, especially when you have kids, most of the time they all kind of start at the same level, but you always have kids that learn a little bit faster, just get things a little bit faster. And that might not always stay the same. The students who maybe take a little bit longer might catch up in other ways later, but trying to foster that desire to learn the next thing without leaving those other kids behind and still making it a safe place for everybody. That's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I do this thing called planting seeds, so that when I see a student who's ready to go ahead, I say, all right, now the rest of us are going to do this, but I'm going to show this to Riley over here, and then I'm planting a seed because you're going to be doing this too. And so I make it feel like they're not
missing out on it.
They're not missing out, that you're gonna do this.
Yeah. Like vibrato is a great example.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that way of doing things. And then also, I mean, if I have a student who's really falling behind, I'll take them and work with them individually too.
Yeah.
I mean, don't just, you're not getting it, and let them sit there, or work with them individually. Because once your class starts to separate like that, it gets really hard to teach.
Well, those things, I love that you're so adamant about, look, we got to know, X, Y, and Z. And it's not a super long list, but it's a super detailed list, and a list that is like, can be expounded upon year after year after year after year. Like, when we look at it, sometimes that beginning of year there is a lot to cover. Oh my gosh, like you can't cover it. But if you can cover the foundational things, you can always just build upon it. That's kind of one of the analogies I always teach in beginning of year is like, look, this stuff is foundational. This is like the concrete. We live in a very fast growing city. So these kids have seen like houses get put up like this. I go, and you guys got a whole new street in your neighborhood. What was the first thing that happened? Well, they came in and poured concrete. Now I had to sit there for like weeks. And then the next day, like they're coming and they're this house.
I love that analogy.
But that first part, that concrete, it takes a while to set in, and you can't get bored while the concrete dries. So we're gonna just do these rebound strokes, and we're gonna do them tomorrow. And we're going to do tomorrow. It's going to be like 3 or 4
You do them
5,
all
6.
year long.
You do them all. You're going to do those things, and then once you want to get to all the fancy stuff, because I want to play these fast rolls and this stuff. It's like, listen, if you wait and be patient with this, that stuff's going to happen really, really quickly for you.
We go slow so we can go fast.
Yeah.
That's what I tell them. We're going slow so we can go fast.
That's
love
it.
that.
Just you wait.
Right.
I'm trying to fish out as many Lynne Jackson isms as possible, and you've delivered on several accounts so far.
Yeah.
Yes, the planting seeds. I had forgotten about that one, and I'm glad.
Oh, planting
that you
seeds
brought
is
that one
big,
up.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna get to do that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get. Okay, yeah, you're gonna get to do it.
Keep them hooked.
So-
Yeah, you got to keep engaged.
And self-discovery also. We have to nurture that as well.
Yeah.
I'm teaching a kid right now called Beckett Russell. He's at Berkner High School. He's on fire. He's on fire. So let him be on fire. Let him just go out and learn anything he wants to learn. I mean, he's learning. He's in 10th grade and he's learning orchestral excerpts. And I talked to his teacher today on the phone, Bob Straka. And I mean, he's hungry, and so.
Trying to give them as much as you can.
Absolutely.
I want to say one thing on that though, because something I also have students like that, and they're the most inspiring students. But one thing that I took from Dr. Duke at UT, he kind of instilled this in me, because I was in my junior year, I think, and I was like, I had kind of just gotten over this hump in my degree where I was, not doing everything I needed to do, and then I was doing everything I needed to do, and then things were going really well for me, and I was like, I want to go talk to Dr. Duke about getting a master's. What's that like? And I kind of had this like, not really, not ignorant, but I was like kind of thinking about the next thing. And he told me, I remember I came to his office and he sat me down and he said, just do what you're doing right now at the absolute highest level, and those things will come for you. And and that's not to say, you don't want to keep kids interested in, they want to play this next solo, but sometimes we have students that are like, Mr. Warren, I want to be
a little too gung ho.
They're a little gung ho, and they they're thinking too far ahead, right? And so
it's instead of progression, it's maybe pulling them back a little bit.
Yeah,
they don't see it.
I think that's important too, and just trying to show those kids what's the next step. Okay, you've learned Yellow After the Rain, very famous marimba solo. Okay, now Rain Dance. Just showing them, what's the very next thing in front. And if you do this, then this will lead to X, Y, and Z that you talked about.
Will lead to another rain piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, another rain piece. Yes. I didn't even realize when I was making the analogy. Yeah.
Right, with the
Yellow After the Rain.
Study all the forms of water first. Then you can
Liquid.
play square one or whatever you
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. It's great points from both of you guys. Like, you want to foster that when they're hungry, give it to them. Let them go. But as a mentor, it's our job to like also, hey, don't skip this step. So where you like, endanger or harm your growth and your technique and the fundamental aspects that you've built so well. That's great points from both of you guys.
Well, I see that when I do not like to judge chamber music festivals anymore.
Okay, cross that off the list.
I did that for so long.
Don't invite Lynn.
Don't invite
at the
Lynn
end
to-
of the
But when a
interview.
teacher gives a kid the Haydn trumpet concerto
Yeah.
and they're not ready to play it, that
Right.
does really bother me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many trumpet solos out there that somebody can play, but why are they playing the Haydn, I mean, it goes up to high E flat,
Yeah.
It's just, there's so many other things that they could do. And I think that we, as teachers, we do need to guide them so that the choices they make are within the means for them to keep advancing.
To keep growing, because they get something like that they bite off more than you can chew. Well, then you spend 2.5, 3 months learning that solo that you have no shot really. So instead of being like growing in those 2 or 3 months, you're frustrated. You're not getting better at your fundamentals and the right things there. So then at the end of the process, then now what have we really learned? We learned that we can't play the solo. We didn't, create strong practice habits. We did not build on our fundamentals, and we, kind of spun our wheels. And that's like
And
the
we were
most frustrating.
we were just
things.
sloppy.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
that's what
sloppy.
does end up
Yeah.
happening.
Then going back to the time has now you spent 3 months playing sloppy. What's about to happen next 3 months?
Yeah.
Probably the
That's
same
a good
thing.
point, yeah.
Probably the same thing.
This is a soapbox for Shannon because our kids often, like many percussionists, I'm going to play the new fancy whatever, and then it's like, are you really ready for that though? And just for exactly the reason he said.
This is my soapbox. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. This is a soapbox podcast. If you feel free to get on a soapbox. I mean,
Okay.
we've gotten on a few so far, but before we leave this, you wanted to talk about the young
Inspired performance.
Inspired Performers.
So,
What's that program? And
Well, here's the thing: is that you have to feed the top of your program,
yeah,
and
it's kind of what we're talking
and-
about here.
and I know we're always trying to make the kids who are struggling or need to improve things. We're finding things for them to do, but there has to be something for the top kids. And Berkner was really in need of that, so I decided let's have this group, Inspired Performers. And so I started about 10 years ago, and it's kids. They had to audition. They had to play like 16 measures of each etude and show that they had been practicing and working on it since they got the music. And then I would pick about 10 kids, no more than 11. And we would meet every week for 2 hours. And I taught them all about performing, preparing, and they had to sing their music. I had competitions head to head. I mean, I said, listen, if you're gonna, they wanted to be area players. They wanted to be all state players. I said, it's a competition. So we did competitive things. I made them tell stories about their music. Like make a story about,
What's happening?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and we did all kinds of creative things. We met every week, and we still do it. And last year, 19 kids. This is the most we've ever had. We've really got a really good group of kids who are really interested in music right now at Berkner. And there 19 kids tried out. That's the most I've ever had. And we're talking about having sort of an A level and a B level.
Yeah.
Miss Mays and I. So I love it. David Bennett was an area player 4 years in a row on Barry sax. Never made All-State. He's full ride, UT, Stephen Page's studio.
Wow.
Just won second place at the Fish-Off competition
Wow.
in South Bend, Indiana. So some just great players have come out of that group. But they also they learned how to prepare music, and they also learned how not to be nervous when they play in front of people.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time on that.
That's almost seems like a intro to being a music ed type of program, and that's so awesome. We have a lot of kids that are interested, at least in the beginning. And that's a great way to kind of show them, like, hey, this is what a music ed degree is kind of about, you know. And that's what a great program. That sounds awesome.
It is a really good program.
That sounds
I
wonderful.
think Ben Underbrink was just talking about how he needed some more responsibilities. So
Perfect. Ben, guess what?
He could do that, yeah.
He would be great.
He would be
yeah.
great. Yeah, but I love doing that group, and the relationships that develop as a result of that it's pretty fun too. So it's
Awesome.
just, you know, and it's something they choose, something they want to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Sometimes kids don't show up. You know, they'll go, okay, yeah, this wasn't for me.
This
That's
wasn't-
okay
and
too.
yeah.
That's okay.
That
Yeah.
what a
Not very often though. Most of them.
Yeah.
I'd imagine so. Again, I like that. It's kind of a mini music ed degree. You know,
Yeah.
Then they're like, I really want to study band, and they go, I don't like it that much. Or, hey, this is for me. That's awesome.
I'll also say, okay, I want you to play a phrase. Stop. Play the next phrase. Show me that you understand the phrases. We try to do. I try to keep it really creative.
Yeah.
And I email them every week and give them hints and suggestions and what we're doing and what they're supposed to be. When we play our scales, we play the scale of the key that the first etude is in, but we start from the lowest note of the etude to go to the highest note and back down into
Nice.
the key. So I try to make it. They
gotta
I try
think
to
a
make
little
it so
bit.
right. Well, they have to practice because
Right.
it's very obvious if they haven't practiced.
Oh, yeah.
Prepared for it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool.
What I'm learning from all of these questions that we're getting to ask you is that you, at every step of your career, you have really had a dream job.
I say so.
And that's what this podcast is all about. And I love that we've gotten to hear your perspective as someone who's had such a long career in music education, and to get to hear, you know, from the middle school things that you were able to do, from your college experience to teaching high school, and to this really cool role that I'm glad we've gotten to expand on from your time at Berkner and with SMU. I mean, it's just, you know, that's a big part of why we do this, is because we want people to really expand what they think is possible from being in music, you know. And we're going to get to some, you know, burnout and life balance questions, but I really want people to come away from listening to this and all the interviews we do inspired and hopefully recharged and thinking about, you know, what they can make out of their musical career. So we've got a few more questions for
Okay,
you.
all right.
And the next one is a little self-serving because this is originally a percussion podcast, but
Oh my gosh.
we have.
Did not know that. No, I'm kidding.
I would have never known. You know, we spent all of last year interviewing percussion directors, and we're really focusing more on people who've been wind directors and headband directors. And so, but we like to tie it in because we hope that a lot of our percussion educator friends will
Still listen.
still
and watch.
listen.
Yeah.
See you out there watching.
Shout
reviews. Yeah, shout out to all of you guys. So I think
Yeah.
you're the next question. Sorry, I didn't want to step on your
yeah,
toes.
You're good. So I made it larger.
It's very,
so I can
I
see.
like S. That means Shannon. This guy.
Okay. You talked about some of the great percussion educators you've gotten to work with over the years. Like, is there anything that percussionists do that you've has maybe influenced your teaching, or that you borrow from the percussion community to use in your wind directing and other things?
Oh yes. Well, I mean, can I name some of them that I worked with?
Please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to Michael Kingan, John Wooten, Drew Lang, Michael Garcia, Mike Matthew. There's a lot of Mikes. Yeah.
Something about percussionists.
And Bryce Freeman. I mean, you guys, you show us the way. I mean, you're so specific.
This is the best question because this is so far the best answer.
Yeah. You're so specific about what you do. You make repetition interesting.
Yeah.
It has to be that you do that because,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that sometimes that's where we fail a little bit as wind teachers, that we don't make repetition as interesting as we need to. You guys make it very interesting. And the developmental process is very obvious in what you do. The self-discipline, the dedication, the leadership that you have within that part of the entire marching organization and concert organization. This guy that's with us now, Bryce Freeman, I can't say, I don't want anybody to steal him, okay? But I mean, our directors, it's time for the percussion to join with the ensemble. They've been working with Bryce. They come in, they are prepared.
Yeah.
It's just, and that doesn't happen in every school that I go to. But at Berkner it does, because there's just so much, it's, the great ones are just so thoughtful. And they don't just work on their show, the spring show, and then don't bother to prepare the concert music for the concert band.
Yeah.
To me, that's wrong. And they're just, I worked with some great percussionists, teachers, and and Mike Garcia. I mean, when he got to go to PASIC with the Berkner kids, he made that so special and such a really wonderful event for them, and it was so thoughtful. So I have a lot of respect for the percussion studios that I've worked with both at Pearce and at Berkner. But I think that making repetition interesting, that's one of the biggest takeaways for me.
That's great. Yeah.
And the attention to detail that you have.
Yeah.
And just in the way that, I mean, you think about it. So one of my friends, Deborah Havre, used to say, when she was picking percussion, she'd say, now, and the moms would be sitting there and say, now, do you do better in class if you're sitting at the front of the room, or can you sit at the back of the room? And the mom will go, no, can't sit at the back of the room. Oh, you're not going to play percussion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
They would pick the percussionist very.
That
very
leads me to the
carefully.
next question. Do you have any special techniques, pedagogy, things that keep the percussionist engaged while being at the back of the room?
No.
It's
It's been so long since I taught band.
Oh.
I had a band. Okay, so the last time I had a band was in 2003. Okay, so I think that I know that some people are really clever with that. I think that though, if you have a percussion, position, they
specialist.
should. So maybe you should ask them and put them in charge of telling you what to do, rather than and how to manage it and how to make sure they're doing exactly what you want them to do when you're not there.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what we used to do with the percussion when I was at North. I really can't remember. But there are really good people out there who can.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to ask every guest this season that same question.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
we're looking forward to
Okay,
the various
yeah.
answers that we get on that. So,
I think I'm the next one too, right?
yeah, you're just taking over, man.
I will.
I'm going to go.
Yeah, you're out. You're done. It's been a long day. Can you share some insight on maintaining a healthy work-life balance in this profession? And this is kind of, important to us. We've lost a lot of great educators, due to a lot of reasons. But one thing that's often cited is, I wasn't spending enough time with my family. I didn't have time for this, that, the other. It could be it's a job that can be kind of all-consuming.
Oh yeah.
So could you just talk us through some of that?
I think about Jason. Jason has 3 children, and he does take time as the head rector, to make sure that he always says, "I'm going to go be dad," and he goes to performances. He takes the girls camping, and we cut the slack, when he's gone.
Yeah.
But he really does a really good job of doing that. I think, and he hydrates. He told me this. He gets good sleep, which I think that I've seen so many young teachers, when they don't get good sleep, it's really, really hard for them to function. He has other interests outside of being a band director. I mean, this is our own personal responsibility to do this.
Yeah.
But the problem is that some people aren't aware when they're at a tipping point, where negative things are going to happen.
Yeah.
I think I cannot say that I've always done that very successfully. Had balance in my life.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times we bring our worries to the classroom, in front of our kids. And Chris Beneda would always say, I'm just going to teach who's in front of me. Whoever's in front of me, I'm going to teach them. I think we have to think about ourselves being happy teachers when we are teaching. But yeah, definitely, it's a hard job. Teaching is hard, but if you love teaching, I think that is the key.
Yeah.
If you really I love teaching.
Yeah.
I could be so tired at the end of a day, and I would go into a sectional at North in my last few years, and I love teaching so much. I just overcame any kind of negativity I felt from being so tired or being so burnt out. But we have to take care of ourselves. I think sleep for me right now is, being my age, that is one of the most important things I do is get good rest. But it's not always possible. When I was young, it was not always possible. I think having hobbies or other interests is good.
Perfect segue, because that's the next thing we're going to ask about. How do you recharge outside? I mean, for some of us, we talked about this with some guests, like recharging is doing more music, like arranging music or composing or going to clinics, right, and go into those things. But what do you do maybe outside of work? I know you love to travel. Where have you traveled the last year, and what are some things that you know?
Well, going back a little bit, I play in the Plano Community Band, and on Monday nights. Now it goes till 9:15. But a lot of band directors play in that band. But what I found, and Kim Reed, who's a friend of mine, it recharges our battery a little bit to be playing our own instrument, and playing some really cool music and sitting on the other side of the fence from being the conductor. And that has been really good for me. And I think other people feel that way too. There's a lot of band directors in the Plano Community Band. Traveling, of course, giving yourself special things to do or look forward to. We all look forward to the vacations. But I went, let's see, in the last few years, I've been to Japan this summer. Went to Japan in June with Keith Bearden and the group of 41 band directors, and we went to Japan. We saw 5 different music education settings while we were over there, and we observed them. It was fantastic. And then we got to have a lot of free time in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Hiroshima. And that's the second time on that trip for me.
Very cool.
Yeah. I took a cruise last year. I think traveling is really good. One thing I would say to young people is try to live within your means. Yeah. Try to learn how to do that. We talk about the money, and now I am worried about that to an extent, because buying a house is really hard for young people now with the salaries the way they are. But I try to live within my means and save money. I own a condominium. I've never really owned a house, but I have a condominium that I own. And but I try to save my money for traveling, having experiences that I wouldn't normally have. It's very satisfying. It's very it really charges the battery a lot.
It's wise to talk about.
Yeah, experience over things.
Yeah, but
I've had 4 Honda Civics.
Honda Civic expert.
Right.
Here.
I live right next to Lute Riley Honda. I drive over there. They say, "Do you need a ride?" I said, "Oh no, I'm walking home." And I walk home, and then they call me, and they know me over there. Here's another thing I want to say to young teachers: go to the symphony concerts.
Yeah.
I see these young people; they'll pay $500 to go to a Rangers playoff game,
right?
But they won't go to the Dallas
Rangers.
Symphony. Right. I love Rangers. I love going to baseball games, but you need to keep your ears fresh.
Yeah.
As how things should sound. And I'm not sure that all band directors have a concept of a characteristic sound of every instrument.
Right.
But if you go to the symphony, you will find out how they should all sound.
Or Dallas
because
Winds.
our Dallas Symphony, Dallas Winds, Lone Star. I think that's very, very important that we also continue our study and being exposed to music and musical events.
Last thing on that, are you not an avid, maybe not collector of art, but is that not another thing that you're interested in?
Oh man,
I've
have
seen
art
your
for sale
condominium,
right now. My friend who just passed left a whole bunch of art by a very famous Italian original pieces.
Wow.
I'm trying to unload them right now.
We'll put the link in below if you want to buy some of
his
Lynne's
name
art.
is Gian, Gian, Vanni, Vanni.
Oh.
I have 5 pieces by him that are in a storage unit in Richardson.
Don't give
Yeah.
any more details.
No, I think the other pivotal person in my life was Claire Johnson.
Yeah.
And she also passed this within the last year. And her studio was her home, and she taught exclusively in her home. That's where she wanted to teach, and it was filled with beauty. And my art collecting just sort of happened by chance. I started with like some Maxfield Parrish, and it just sort of went from there. And I have a Degas. I have okay, no, I can't. I can never think of this guy's name, but he's a very famous English artist. And I have some very nice original art that just has come my way because I got involved. I love Anthony Bourdain, and he went to Montana, to Livingston, Montana, and he met a guy named Russell Chatham. And that was the first piece of art that I bought. And I went every year. My friend Jeff and I would go up to northern Michigan, and we'd go up to the Leelanau Peninsula. And I'll make this story shorter. But I was like, where is the largest collection of Russell Chatham paintings? Right where we were staying in Suttons Bay, Michigan.
Wow.
And that was the first piece of expensive art that I bought.
Wow.
And it was called Fishing the Colorado. And then since then, Russell has passed. And his best friend was Jim Harrison, who wrote Legends of the Fall. And I got all interested in him, and his books are really, really interesting to read too. And but Anthony Bourdain went out to Livingston, Montana, and hung out with these guys. And so that's where I got interested in art. It was watching Anthony Bourdain, and then from there I just have gone crazy, sort of.
Well, that's cool. I love hearing about your art collection.
I have an art wall in my home.
Yes, it's beautiful, and I think that's another, maybe that's not art for everybody, but to have something, maybe not directly related to music that you're interested in, I think is really cool.
I think that surrounding yourself with beauty is really important. And I will sit in my chair every day and just stare, look at it, and it is a satisfying thing. It's not for like you say, it's not for everybody. But,
Yeah.
Men have their man caves, right?
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Yeah.
Sacred place.
Yeah, for sure.
Sacred place.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, let's talk about some of your other professional affiliations, TMA, TBA, your Conn-Selmer Association, how those things both helped you and served you, and does that allow you to kind of give back?
Oh yeah, I love all those things. I attend TMEA, I attend TBA, I attend Midwest when I can, and I love going to Midwest. But I serve on the Conn-Selmer education faculty. Love Dr. Tim, love the Paula Kreider and Larry Livingston and all the people that are involved in that.
Larry Livingston, he's someone we need to get on the podcast.
Yeah.
He would be awesome.
That would be.
You know what? You do need.
We are cult fans of Larry Livingston.
He is a beautiful speaker and writer.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful. And and yes, he was at the last Conn-Selmer that I attended. And Conn-Selmer is, I want to say it's a really great thing to go to. It's changing a little bit. We're going to have these satellite. I actually did the one in Tempe, Arizona this year. It was great. It was a one-day Conn-Selmer Institute.
PASIC is kind of doing that more now with these PAS days of percussion kind of around the country that people can have access to.
Yeah. We're so lucky in this country to have the opportunities that we have to learn and grow.
Yeah.
But we have to show up.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's true.
We have to show up. Yeah. It's not a job. It's a career.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit that little thing.
Here we go.
That's awesome.
Isn't this thing great? I love that you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
But if you treat it like a job, I don't think you're gonna like it, and you're not gonna do very well. It's a career. it's a life.
It's an investment. I mean, you got to invest in all time, whether it's in your, obviously your students, but also in yourself, your own education. Like if you fell in love with music and at some point in your life, I want to do this every day, man, don't let anything deter that. That's kind of my things. Like nothing can deter me from, like, I want to go see the best percussion ensembles in the world, the best drum set clinics. And
now
all
we
the
can, I mean, with technology, we can.
So easy.
I mean, it's like, it's crazy. So I always tell the kids, I didn't even have a copy machine when I started teaching. There was not a copy machine. We had a mimeograph machine.
Oh my gosh.
And we would write something down. We could write music or whatever by hand, and then on this paper, but below it was something that could make copies of it.
Yeah.
And it had this smell that sort of made you a little high when you smelled it. So the kids would always go like this when they got that. And all the old people know what I'm talking about. But I mean, that's what we had. I never had a copy machine, ever. I never had a cell phone. I don't know how I got anywhere. We never had GPS. I don't know how I ever found anything. I mean, how did we find Vandercook College of Music in Chicago? I don't remember. I mean, it was. There
was more signage back then.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know how I ever got anywhere, but I did. But all of this technology, I think it's wonderful. I really do try to embrace it.
That's awesome. That's great.
That's all the questions we have. Shannon has one more little segment that he likes to do, but he's going to ask you some questions. And is there just anything else before we kind of wrap this up that you want to add on to kind of the end?
Any more soapboxes?
So you were
soapboxes or plugs that you want to make?
One thing that I did leave out when you asked about my work-life balance, I started about 2 years ago getting up every morning. And I go to work at 6:30 a.m. every day. I put on my walking shorts, my T-shirt. I go outside, and I'm either unloading or uploading. Now, today I uploaded because I had your questions on my phone. And so I walked 3 miles, and I was uploading things that I wanted to say, to address when you asked me these questions.
Cool.
If I'm unloading, I'm working out a problem. I'm working out something that bothers me.
Oh, I love that.
I'm working out, I have a conundrum and I've got to figure it out. It has helped me so much.
Is it always walking the 3 miles?
Sometimes 4, sometimes 2. It just depends on how hot it is and what I have to do. But that's the first thing I do. I drink a big glass of water, put my shorts on, put my T-shirt, clothes on, shoes, go outside. And for me, it has really made a difference in my life. Yeah.
I love that. I'm such a big fan of like physical activity, and they're the mental benefits of it. So to do that deliberately, time the shed, like I am, doing this walk not only for my physical health, but this is for me to mentally work through problem X, Y, or Z. Or I know I need to prepare for this next thing. So on this walk, which has helped me physically, I'm going to, think about my next, month schedule. Or not. I love that. That is.
It really is. Well, it started during COVID because I live alone, and what was there to do? The only thing we could do was go outside and walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or go to the store and open the trunk and let them put the groceries in the trunk that we ordered online, whatever, I mean.
Some people still do that.
Yeah.
I never went away.
Yeah.
So, but that's when it started, and it's just, and so and sometimes I'm just not thinking about anything. If I don't have something to upload or unload, I'm just out there, just enjoying the beauty of the parking lots that I'm walking in.
Well, I think
nice concrete.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, besides the benefits of being physically active, which I think everyone can benefit from, there's just something about getting up and walking or exercising or however you want to get moving, just getting out and moving, and then being in nature, when you can. I think that's important. As you said, surrounding yourself with beauty.
I have 8,647 steps today.
Woo!
You're beating us.
I don't know mine.
Now I want to check.
I know.
Who top?
Let's get sharing fitness, and then we can do some competitions.
Oh, okay.
We're into the Apple Watch competitions.
Yeah.
It's fun.
We haven't done one in a while because summertime is kind of vacation. We made a truce.
I
This
like
guy's
it a
making
lot.
excuses over here.
Barbara Lambert was the one that really inspired me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love this thing. You can track all sorts of things.
Oh, I love mine too.
Yeah.
Just got a new one.
Nice.
Anything else you want to plug or add on here? Because once we go down this next path, there's no going
There's
back
no
to the
going-
seriousness.
Okay.
But Shannon has this segment that he does on all of our podcasts that's fun and
Okay.
and
Well,
silly.
it's just, it's a microcosm of my ADHD, to be honest.
Yeah.
These are the questions I'm thinking about.
Okay.
Literally any time, like even when people are talking about something serious. So it's called good idea, bad idea. And you can just say if it's a good idea, bad idea.
Okay.
And I would love for you to expound on why it is a good
Okay.
idea or bad
All
idea. Buying instruments from a pawn shop.
Bad idea.
Just not a lot of trust in the pawn shop system here.
And you could get in a lot of trouble too because you're buying something somebody ripped
yeah.
off. So yeah.
Yeah, you're probably buying
Yeah, that's
stolen
not
instruments.
good. No, bad idea.
Or buying instruments off of Amazon.
Bad idea.
Like the purple, blue trombones they sell
right,
on there.
The blue one plays better. Yeah.
There's color options.
Amazon trumpet.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna work. I encounter some interesting mallet choices.
Yeah, for us it's mallet choices or bell kits, stuff like that.
Yeah, when we say don't,
Yeah.
just literally follow the link and buy it.
Yeah.
Vacation in the mountains.
Good idea. I love the mountains. I love the beach too. I go down to.
That was the next question.
Yes, no, I
So
love.
they're all good ideas.
I like the mountains. I think I like them both. I go down to Destin in January,
Ooh.
and we
Nice.
stay. It's cold. So
Smart.
my sister and I and
Probably
and
not
my
crowded
brother-in-law-
either.
No, when we can eat at any restaurant we want. We walk the beaches every day. We play games. We just take 1 week just to de-intensify.
Yeah.
Right.
Just relax and.
I
It's
like that
very
idea
nice.
of
We go
going
every
to-
January. It's really fun.
I just got back from Key West. That was my summer.
Oh, that's nice.
Tampa and then Key West, beautiful. You know.
Yeah, that's really important. And even if you just even take a week and you can't afford to go anywhere, just cook it on the grill, going down to the community pool or whatever. I mean, make your own vacation.
Right.
Yeah, I love creativity.
Staycation.
Creativity is so important in our profession. We have to be creative.
Yeah.
I like that. Love that. Walking barefoot to check the mail. Sorry. I was thinking
It's
about
a really bad idea.
it's a bad idea, right?
Very bad.
I don't like
No.
rocks on my feet.
Yeah.
Not a big fan.
I'm not good. Yeah, with that. No.
Yeah, I need shoes. All times, to be honest.
I'm not going to get into some of the reviews I've gotten on the quality of my feet on this podcast. They're not high. It's not the best thing about me. And it's because, I grew up in the country, and so if I make the decision to go to my door, and I'm like, oh, the mailbox is just right there, but I have to go all the way back. Just do it,
Yeah.
and then I
I've never
regret
been
it.
a barefoot person.
Yeah.
I don't even like walking on sand barefoot. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
I hate walking on
I
sand.
hate it.
Period.
Shannon
I grew
hates
up
the
on Lake
water.
Michigan.
I also don't like the
Yeah,
water.
we went to Lake Michigan all the time. I lived 20 minutes from Lake Michigan my whole youth.
Wow.
It's a beautiful lake.
All right,
It is.
last one. This is me on the fly. Eating popcorn in bed.
Well, after my last bout of diverticulitis, I do not eat popcorn anymore.
Anywhere.
I actually had 10 inches of my colon removed on December 27th.
Oh my gosh.
Because of I had eaten popcorn.
It was a popcorn. Oh, I didn't even know. I'm
That's
sorry.
bad news for me. That's like half my diet.
But I love popcorn. I love
Oh,
it.
man.
Oh man.
But eating popcorn in bed, not a good idea.
Oh
The-
man.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, the buttery stuff. Yeah.
Butter stuff. Yeah.
bad
I
idea.
like pork rinds in bed. It's a lot of crumbs.
Oh
It's a
my
lot of crumbs.
gosh.
Pork rinds are gross.
No, dude, they're so good. And also they're like 0 carbs. And it's like about the only snack I can have.
Yeah. Interesting.
I've never
not
been
for
a big
me.
pork rind person. no.
Yeah, Funyuns, pork rinds, all that kind of. I don't like that texture.
I need a crunch. I can't have potato chips.
Crunchy. Yeah.
I
I like
can't-
other crunchy things.
I think I'll do another one. Driving on 635.
Oh yeah. Every time we. That's a bad idea.
It's a bad
Unfortunately,
idea.
I don't have a
Especially now.
choice.
Yeah,
For me.
you chose to live there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's funny because every time we've had you out here a few times in the last few years, and we always end up talking about the curving. There's you can see the old lines, but then there's new
Oh
lines.
my
There's
gosh.
construction.
Yeah.
There's too many people.
There's
Also,
too many
Yeah.
people. There's
Too many
wrecks. If
people.
it rains, it's over.
Yeah.
You're
It's
not
over.
getting out.
There's going to be wrecks. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that's the end of my silly questions.
yeah, this is a little fun way to
This
end
has
it.
been great. Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, Lynn, thank you so
mean-
much, for taking some time out to come and talk to us, and not just to us. I mean, it's not about us. It's about all the people all the dozens of people, the
Millions and millions.
2 or 3 people who are going to go and watch this. No, hopefully, a lot of people I know are going to be
Actually,
interested
one of
in-
my friends knew exactly what it was.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's funny you say that, because I was at a wedding reception a few weeks ago, and someone I'd never met before was like, "You're Riley Warren from the Dream Job podcast." And I was like, "Oh my God, I never thought this would actually happen." It's cool. People are actually kind of picking it up. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your, many years of experience and wisdom.
So much experience.
And you're such a kind and selfless person, and we love you. And
Oh,
you're just,
thank you.
You're so great.
I'm so lucky, honestly.
Oh,
I have a great family and great friends, and I consider myself to be a pretty darn lucky.
well, we consider ourselves lucky to know you, and I know that is shared amongst a lot of people. So thank you again for being on here, and can't wait for this episode to come out and promote it, and for everybody to hear your story. And
I can't wait to
it's gonna be great.
cringe.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
no, only me. I'm the only one.
Oh no, you guys are great. I really thank you for inviting me. I really do.
No,
Our
thank you for
pleasure.
being here.
Our
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
So we'll close it out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again on the second episode of Season 2 of the Dream Job Podcast. Remember, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. And you can listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. Again, my name's Riley Warren with Shannon Jacobs, and our guest today was Lynne Jackson. Thank you guys so much, and we hope you'll share the show and tune in for the next episode.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Grow the show.